You're listening to Beyond Insights, your go-to podcast for all things accounting, business, and technology.
From cybersecurity and AI innovations to sustainability and work-life balance, we've got you covered.
We host insightful guests from different backgrounds, industries, and locations all around the world.
From this diversity of thought, we aim to find solutions to some of our most pressing business problems.
Thank you for tuning in. Let's dive right in and go beyond insights.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Beyond Insights. My name is Jamie and I'm joined today by Vanessa Ugatti. A very, very big welcome to you, Vanessa, and thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you very much, Jamie. Thank you very much for inviting me. Lovely to be here.
Yeah, absolute pleasure. I'm looking forward to today. On today's episode of Beyond Insights, we're going to be talking about discovering your value and building self-worth, and so that you can charge accordingly. Vanessa, why don't we get started with you just giving us a bit of background into your fascinating life?
Happy to do that, Jamie. So you might be thinking, did this person wake up one morning, decide that they were going to set up a niche to help people get paid their true worth? And the answer is no, I didn't. I was working with professional people, helping them, coaching them around mindset and confidence many years back. But there was a bit of a niggle going on in my mind, and I knew that there was something missing, but I didn't know what it was. Anyway, I could make it a very long story or a shorter story, so I'll make it shorter. So by some quirk of fate, I stumbled across a marketing program for coaches, and it said, you need to have a niche. Now, I'd heard this word niche, but I didn't know what mine was, and I certainly didn't know how to create one. But I signed up for a program back in 2013, 13. And on the first workshop, they reminded us again that we needed to have a niche. And they asked us to write down all our interests from our least interest to our greatest. And I have to say, I can't remember any of them other than this one subject of valuing yourself or your true worth, and which appeared on the paper. And I had no idea how it had got there. So it come right from my subconscious mind. So we don't actually realize as human beings how powerful the subconscious mind is. So anyway, the person running the workshop said, well, actually, that's very marketable. So I said, okay, you're the marketing expert. So I'm no marketing expert. I don't know. So off I went networking. And back in those days, who did we see a lot of networking? Professional people, accountants, lawyers, financial advisors, those sorts of people. And I quickly found out that undercharging, underestimating, discounting, over-servicing were really commonplace problems amongst highly experienced and capable professionals. So that was my first sort of, if you like, bit of evidence that I was on the right track. And then I looked at clients I'd been working with, and I discovered I'd already been helping them with charging, which doesn't surprise me, because if I was helping people with confidence, if they're not confident in one area, charging is almost bound to be a subject that they're not confident with. I think, as human beings, and it honestly doesn't matter where you are in the world, this is a human problem. Charging is challenging because it can be very emotive, especially when you're selling a service. Yeah. Especially when you're a technical type person selling a service. It doesn't really matter whether it's accountancy, business advisory, law, or anything else that you can think of. It's a service, and people then feel like they're selling themselves, and it's also not tangible. And then I decided to shine the spotlight on myself, and guess what I found, Jamie? I was clueless.
You were undercharging.
Clueless at charging. Clueless at charging because I didn't understand my value, and because I was embarrassed talking about money. I can't even remember what your question was now, but I think you wanted me to share how I got into this.
Yeah.
And so
I think that's important to have that background and how you dug out your own niche in the market, not really sure where you fit into the greater scheme of things, initially at least. And, as time passed and as you got a bit more experience and you had these life experiences, I know when we were chatting off air, you were telling me about all the places you've been, and of course you're a best-selling author, you're a motivational speaker, you do coaching, and you're meeting a lot of interesting people along the way, and that allows you to really dig out your niche in the market, and meet a lot of people, interesting people along the way.
Yeah, and as I said, the thing is, it's relevant to everybody. And you know that the thing about charging is it's not about how brilliant you are at what you do. So you could be brilliant at what you do and really rubbish at the business side.
Mm.
Even accountants can be, even accountants can
Yeah.
be. I could even talk about my nephew who was a chartered accountant and a conversation we had recently. And I realized, I'd always just seen him as being a very intelligent person, which he was in his field, but not necessarily that commercially aware, despite being a chartered accountant. So it's really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So
So, Vanessa, when it comes to charging what you're worth, specifically for small business owners, accounting professionals, or anyone really in the professional services area, how would you say self-worth really affects the business owner or
mhm.
professional service offerer? How does it affect their ability to charge fairly for their services?
It does 100%, Jamie, because I say, and it's true, whether I say it or not, or anybody else did, self-worth is actually at the heart of everything we do and drives our behavior. So it's all very well people just being taught how to do process, but if they don't understand their own mind and how it's working and how it's impacting on them, they will find themselves undervaluing themselves. So they'll find
Mhm.
themselves discounting, over servicing, doing too much work, working even with clients who aren't even good clients.
Yeah.
People that I call them PITA clients, which is a bit rude, and it stands for pain in the A. I don't know, depending on where people are in the world, they may not understand that, but I'm sure they can work it out for themselves
Right.
what I mean. And everybody in the world will understand who these clients are. They're the ones who just want you to do everything for very little, and they're
Mm.
usually unpleasant, or they want
Right.
to they want everything for nothing really.
Yeah.
And so they also then continue to drive self-worth down. So if somebody isn't willing to say no,
Yeah.
then they'll create problems for themselves. And
Yeah.
so I think one of the characteristics that I identified quite a few years ago really was, or is, people pleasing. And I
Mm.
think people pleasing is a really common problem where people just think they've got to constantly please, which means they don't have boundaries with
Yeah.
their clients. And the client is driving the conversation, the sales conversation, rather
Yeah.
than the whoever the provider is.
Yes.
So it's absolutely, I don't care what position people are, what level they are in a firm, whether it's their own or not, how they think will determine how well they succeed and how
Mm.
well they can charge, not how
Yeah.
brilliant they are. It's a sad case. I do hope that people will be brilliant at what they do and charge accordingly. I
Yeah.
don't want to
I
help people
suppose,
charge if they're not brilliant at what they do, but
of course, of course.
in
I suppose
balance.
it does involve and entail a lot of deep digging to kind of get to the bottom of, am I worth what I'm charging my clients and my customers? And is it fair? And
Mm,
it does entail being quite vulnerable with yourself to say, am I the type of business leader or owner that is confident in my service that I'm offering?
mm,
And do I actually believe that what I'm charging my client is valuable to the client at the end of the day?
yeah.
Sort of strategies would you give
Mm.
business owners that might be struggling with their self-worth? Where is a good place to start, Vanessa?
Get help. I think, I mean, really, you can try doing things on your own, but I think you have to get help. As I said at the beginning,
Mm.
I was struggling with valuing myself. I didn't understand my value. And I felt embarrassed talking about money. And I also had self-worth stuff going on. I think probably everybody in the world is on that spectrum of
Yeah,
self-worth. And some people will be zero self-worth and some people will be 100%, but we're all
yeah,
somewhere. It's a bit like autism. We're all somewhere on the spectrum. It's just
yes,
where we are. So if because I really strongly believe that people know if they're doing a good job or not.
mm,
I don't think people don't know that, but they get into the habit of doing something. So, we're creatures of habit. So they'll keep doing the same old thing and same old thing until they fall off. the hamster wheel, and then they say, oh
Yeah.
my God, I've fallen off the hamster wheel, I better do something different. But what I'm saying is stop before you fall off and say, I need to have this reviewed. I need to review this. Find somebody to talk to so you can see what you're doing, and whether it's worth it or not. And also talk to your clients. How radical can you get? Talk to your clients, ask them how they value you, because I see it, people not valuing themselves, but not actually finding out from the client how valuable they are, doing stuff for free when they don't need to. They just need to convert it into a conversation about the value of it. Ask your clients how valuable you are to them, and if they don't
That's a
think
good
you are,
point.
then why are they working with you?
Yeah, absolutely. We talked about getting started and having that bit of introspection to be honest with yourself and seeking help initially to boost your confidence so that you can charge fairly for your services. On the other hand, things might be going well for a really long time. You might see yourself as quite a confident person, and really, a firm believer of the prices that you are offering your clients for the services you're rendering for them. I think we saw this quite a bit in COVID. There were a lot of businesses that were set back by the pandemic, and personally, there's a lot of instances in our lives where we do have these setbacks. Would your strategies be the same for people that are experiencing setbacks who have traditionally or in the past performed pretty well in their businesses?
Obviously, if they've already performed well before, you could say, Jamie, that it's a little bit easier, couldn't you? Because they've got that reference point they can go back to and say, okay, I think one of the things that you can do if you're doing it on your own is to step out of yourself. So you're acting as if you're a different person, looking at yourself and saying, okay, so in the past, I did this, this, and this, and that was working well. What's changed? What's going on? What's going on in my mind, first of all? Not just what can I blame on the outside, because I think it's very, very easy for people to blame circumstances. COVID was a very weird situation. And I think I was aware of accountants during that time doing a lot of extra work for their clients without charging. And some of them were probably driving themselves into an early grave over that. So maybe somebody got into a bad habit because of external circumstances, and because they're people-pleasing and heart-led people, which are not bad people, they're good people. I'm a heart-led person myself. And it's actually learning to balance that and recognize your behavior and still care about a client, but not at your own expense. So I think that they can step out of themselves and try and look at yourself objectively and say, what am I doing that's actually not working? Or that's where I'm not charging properly, where actually before I was, why am I not doing it anymore? What do I need? And you can boost yourself up by speaking to yourself positively. So
I suppose that's where the mindfulness element comes in,
absolutely,
right?
absolutely, because all of it, we're human beings, so we're not one thing all the time. We can't be. We do have ups and downs, and we have things in our lives, curveballs that get thrown at us and all sorts of things. We're not machines. We're not AI, are we? We're human beings. So we need to be aware of that and also be kind to ourselves and say, okay, I'm struggling here with this. What do I need to do? Or what do I need for me to be able to put myself in a more resourceful position to be able to then have those conversations confidently. So I think people need to stop and step back. And I think sometimes people are so busy, they just carry on without thinking.
Yeah. In talking about mindfulness, I think, it's a bit of a buzzword. And when people hear the word mindfulness, they automatically jump to yoga and meditation and all that sort of thing. But it's really not that, right? What are some of the strategies, of mindfulness that you can practice on the go in a busy day, Vanessa?
Well, you could decide to set your alarm on your phone to ring every couple of hours to wake you up from your slumber. And I don't mean that you've been asleep, that you've fallen into just whatever the drone in your head is. And then you can check in. what am I thinking? What am I feeling? Actually, what am I feeling is better, because we have something like 50 to 80,000 thoughts a day. So that's a lot of thoughts to monitor, but we've only got a limited number of feelings. So if you're feeling stressed, or if you're feeling worried or anxious or anything of that nature, you want to change that feeling, because that feeling is not resourceful. So the way to do that is really simple. We didn't really get taught this at school, which it should have been done, to be honest with you, because kids would get it straight away. It's just look out of the window at something nice, or think about somebody you love, or an animal that, a dog that you cherish, or something that makes you feel good. That fast, you've come out of your slumber or out of your negative thinking, and you've put yourself into a resourceful state. Why did nobody teach us that when we were kids?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it was taken for granted. Personally, acts, just thinking about all of the things that I'm grateful for in my personal life has been quite effective for me in terms of practicing mindfulness. But there's a lot of different things that people can do, I think.
All really simple stuff. I think that's the thing. It doesn't have to be complicated. I think sometimes people can make it complicated because they want to sound like they're clever, but it doesn't have to be. So I think the biggest challenge we have in our life is our own mind. There is no bigger challenge, believe me, having been on the planet for the number of years I've been on it. I know that this is the truth, because we were taught also to think that everybody else is causing us to feel a certain way, but actually we're causing ourselves to feel a certain way. But we've learnt that from everybody else. So somebody presses our buttons and we go off like a rocket and we blame them. So every time we do that, we're giving our power away. So I say, you have to, overcoming your mind will strengthen you and make you more powerful. And that's what we have to do. So every day we get up and we brush our teeth and we have a shower and we eat breakfast and we do 1,000,001 things to look after the body. But what do we do to look after the mind?
Yeah, absolutely. Just chatting about mindfulness as a habit, what other habits could professionals kind of practice on a daily basis to improve their self-worth?
Tell themselves every day, I am fantastic, I am amazing, I am wonderful, I provide amazing value for my clients every day. You can make up your own affirmations to suit yourself. Affirmations are statements that you must say in the positive and in the present tense. That's the only rules, really. And the two words I am are the most powerful words in the entire language, and translate them into another language if you've got another language that you use as well. But yesterday, these three affirmations came into my mind. It was, I am focused, I am fearless, and I am fantastic. So I thought, right, I really like that. All those F's, I really like that. So it was only yesterday they came. I don't know why they just appeared. So I thought, it feels to me like I should be practicing those. I am focused, I am fearless, and I am fantastic.
I love that.
Whatever you're telling yourself is what your subconscious mind hears and registers, because the subconscious mind can't judge whatever you're saying. I have to get that. I have to say that again, because it's so important. The subconscious mind cannot say, no, that's wrong, Vanessa.
Yeah.
It can't.
Absolutely.
It just accepts, like a sponge, whatever you tell it.
Yeah.
So whatever people repeat to themselves becomes the truth for them. And of course, as you're telling yourself positive stuff, it makes you feel better.
Immediately
better.
Yeah.
Providing you have to, sometimes you've got to practice it to believe it, because there'll be the other voice going, oh no, you're crap. Oh, I'm allowed to say that on a podcast. Well, I just have.
No, that's okay. But it's about manifestation, I suppose. You're putting it out into the universe and you're allowing it to happen. Conversely, if you told yourself, negative things about yourself, you're sure to believe those. So why would it not work when you're verbalizing positive affirmations? So I definitely think there's value in that.
There is value, but again, it's you have to be aware, and you have to be willing to put in some work for that to to pay dividends. And it's
Right.
really easy, if you're a sensitive person, to be triggered and knocked into a negative space. And actually, you know, if we think about it, I think human beings are naturally more negative than they are positive. And I don't mean that in a negative way when I say it, because I think it's about self-preservation. So if we were, you know, if we lived in a different world, if we were cavemen, we would be in a state where we were probably in constantly alert
Yeah.
because of, you know, threats to our physical being.
Fight or flight.
The fight or flight thing. So we are hardwired for fear, which means we're hardwired to be quite negative, to
Right.
protect us from dying. And
makes
that
sense.
part of the brain that triggers the fight or flight response hasn't really changed,
Yeah.
even though most of us, not all of us in the world, obviously, but hopefully everybody on this who will ever listen to this podcast are living in relative safety.
Yes.
And so we shouldn't really be in that state, but it's still there. It's natural. So whether we have a real danger or an imaginary one, we kick off that fight or flight response.
Absolutely.
So we have to know this. You know, if we don't get taught this stuff, and you know, how many accountants get taught all of this stuff? They probably don't. They went to accountancy school, not mind school.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we need to understand ourselves and how we operate. You could drive a car without knowing how a car drives, but you really need to be able to drive yourself and know how you work.
Yeah. Vanessa, let's talk a bit about burnout. And we might have touched on this a bit earlier. You're a professional in accounting or professional services, and you've done extraordinarily well in the past, and everything's just kind of caught up to you, and all of a sudden you physically cannot carry on. And you can't really dig yourself out of that hole. What advice would you give to someone who is either experiencing burnout currently or feels like they're on the verge of burnout, and they can certainly feel their sense of self-worth diminishing?
Well, it will do, but it's probably the lack of self-worth that has caused them to burn out in the first place. So I'm turning it on its head. I'm not an expert in burnout.
Right.
But I suspect that's what it is, because if people are working in a way where they're just out of balance, they're just looking after the client at the expense of the business and the expense of themselves, then they're on that way to burnout, as far as I'm concerned.
Yes.
And there are people like that. So I talk about, and it's not here because we haven't got my image up, I talk about a magic triangle, which is create maximum value for your client while creating maximum value for the business, while taking great care of yourself. Because when you do, if you think when you're having business conversations with your clients, if you think about the client, the business, and yourself in equal measure, you should be being fair. This is called justice or balance or fairness. And it's not about ripping the client off, but it's also not about ripping the business off or ripping yourself off.
Yeah.
I was running some training for a law firm about a month ago, I suppose it was. And actually this firm, they're employee owned. So it's a brilliant sort of firm for me to be working with, because everybody should have a financial interest in how well the firm's doing, and they seem to be doing quite well. And at one point, when people were talking about, oh yeah, I'm guilty of discount or guilty of over servicing, I said, oh, so you don't mind robbing yourself then, or stealing from yourself?
There's a trade-off, right?
Yeah,
there's got to be. You can't go too far to the one corner, otherwise something's got to give.
Yeah. So remember that people are human beings, and so before you get to the stage of burnout, don't get to that stage by making sure that you're looking after yourself as well as the business and the client. And actually, when people do that, they can serve the client better. There is no loss in this at all. It's just people's worrying, making assumptions that if I charge so and so, the client won't want to pay it, then I'm going to lose the client, then I'll lose money, then I won't meet my targets if they're in a firm, and then what's going to happen? I'm going to lose my job, and then I'll lose my house, and then I'll be on the street. You know, the monkey mind is very good at catastrophizing. So that's why it's so important to get to grips with understanding what's going on in that noddle, in that brain, and stop it. But if somebody is in burnout, the only thing you can do is stop and rest.
Because you're doing a disservice to your clients and to your business, I suppose.
Yeah.
We don't have very long left,
The
Vanessa,
time's
and
gone
this has
too
been
fast.
absolutely fascinating. We could go on for hours and
Oh,
hours.
I could do, once you get me
Maybe
going.
maybe some final questions from my side. What are some of the most common mistakes you see professionals and anyone really make when they are trying to improve their self-worth?
Well, or perhaps being impatient with themselves. I think it's about being patient and kind to yourself. You know, whenever, as human beings, we don't like change. We like what's easy. We like to take the easy route. This is why people get into these bad habits and they continue doing them, because it's easy, because it's well practiced. So I think if you want to make changes, you have to be sensible in what changes you're going to make, not put yourself under huge pressure. Just take one step at a time and say, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to practice this. If I fall off the wagon, then I'm just going to say, okay, no problem, and get back on again.
Yeah, I suppose it's difficult because it's the age of instant gratification, right? So
there is no instant gratification in this sort of thing, really.
Yeah.
It's about learning patience with yourself, patience and kindness.
Absolutely.
You know, be your own best friend. How would you treat somebody else if they were in that situation? Would you go around beating them up and shouting at them, or would you encourage them? So if people think about themselves, like inside there's a 5-year-old child. I call the subconscious mind the 5-year-old child. Anyway, inside is a 5-year-old child, and every other age, frankly. So if the child is upset, then would you scream at it, or would you want to pat it on the back or stroke it or say something sweet to it?
Yeah, absolutely. Final question. As a business owner or leader in a firm, professional services firm, what immediate strategies can you put in place to help bolster the self-worth of your team? Is it as simple as that reassurance and treating everyone else as the 5-year-old child or their inner child, being patient and kind with their 5-year-olds?
Well, it is, but also valuing what they do, giving people positive feedback. That's not to say you never say when they need to improve something, but it's how you do it. It was funny, I saw a post on LinkedIn this morning, somebody talking about valuing their people or saying something to their people nice about what they've done and how their productivity goes up. This is the whole thing. We were taught we need to beat people up and that's going to make them do better. It's not. It's not also being walked all over by them or thinking they can just get away with murder. So it's about making sure people feel valued. And I think if it's about creating a culture in the firm of value beyond just the money, the whole sort of meaning of value. And if anybody is listening from a professional firm who is a leader, I'd love to have a conversation with you. Are we going to give my details?
Yes, you're welcome to.
So my name is Vanessa Ugatti, which is Ugatti. There's only one of me in the whole world. So if you Google Vanessa Ugatti, you'll find me. My business is thetrueworthexpert.com, and you can contact me by email or by phone or by WhatsApp or any other means you think is available these days. There's so much choice.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today, Vanessa. It was absolutely fascinating. Looking forward to chatting to you again soon.
Yeah, that was delightful as well. The time, it felt like about 10 minutes to me. So.
Keep well and we'll chat soon. Until next time, everyone, thank you so much for tuning in. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in to the Beyond Insights podcast.
Please like and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to right now.
And please share with any of your colleagues or friends or family members that you think might benefit from listening to this podcast.
That's all from us. Until next time, see you then.